Alright guys, so update on the Subaru. This video was supposed to be titled Transmission Removal Part 1, but my phone decided to delete that, so Subaru has already taken apart. So I'll give you a rundown of what I did to take transmission out, what I've done so far, and some problems I ran into. This is my flywheel. So you can see heat marks and it was getting scuffed by the rivets. This clutch plate looks like it was never changed. The heat spots, it was down to the rivets, etc. The pressure plate scorned. It just wasn't good. See, the teeth of being the throttle bearing was digging in there. All right. So this is my car, my job on the lift. So. Alright guys, so in the last video I showed you guys how to remove your slave cylinder, and from there I was supposed to continue on with the transmission removal. Alright, so we disconnected the slave cylinder, the top mount that goes to the transmission, and you want to crack the downpipe bolts from the top that you could get at. Obviously you want to then if you're going to be able to get at one of the starter bolts that goes from the top. And what else? That's probably, you could probably get at a few more bell housing bolts. Other than that, not much from the top. So from inside, you're gonna want to disconnect your shift knob, and you're gonna want to pull this centerpiece out, disconnect your shift knob, and then you're gonna want to take out these 4 bolts that hold this metal plate in up here, and that's all you have to do up here. Next, you're going to want to take the wheels off the car, and you're going to want to disconnect the axles. So you're going to take the 2 bolts out of the strut tower, and then you're going to want to lean this hub forward, and you're going to want to pop the axle out, and then you're going to go to the transmission where it would be, and you're going to pop out the axles from the transmission. Make sure you have a catch pan because it will spill. Next, you're going to want to disconnect the rest of the exhaust. You're going to want to mark the drive shaft, and then you're going to want to take out the 4 bolts from back here, drop the exhaust, drop the drive shaft. Tranny would say be still here. After draining the fluid, you're going to want to get the rest of the bolts you can from the bottom. The rest of the bell housing bolts, this last starter bolt, let's say the starter is out, then you're gonna want to there's gonna be a rear transmission mount cross member right here. You're gonna want to get a transmission stand and then start working at pulling that tranny out. I broke a ground, so that's one thing to look out for, is a ground hanging on there. And another tip is don't let your shaft, like just the whole transmission, rest on the shaft in the clutch. You're gonna mess up the splines. Other than that, it was fairly easy. Now for my transmission, I already did engine work, so I had to pull the motor and do the heads and everything, so it was fairly easy to take my transmission out. I did it by myself, but I'm gonna tell you some of the things I ran into and the reason my clutch went. This is the transmission out of the car. So basically, I don't have it anymore, but if I have a picture, I'll put it in there. But the throttle bearing that I had exploded inside the car. There was metal shavings sitting in the bell housing, and the balls for the bearing were sitting everywhere. It was dirty. It was really bad. And as you can see, it actually wore a groove into this snout on the transmission, and this is a very deep groove, so I'm not able to put my transmission in back yet, which sucks. The only way to fix this is to replace the case, and that's expensive, and I do not want to do that. So the other option besides replacing the case would be they sell a aftermarket sleeve to put over this snout. So it's a sleeve, and they throw a oversized throttle bearing with the deal. It's like $168. I found one for $80, and basically that's gonna be a fix. It's pretty common for Subarus. There's 2 set screws that hold the sleeve on there. None of these were damaged, and you just want to clean that up before you put your transmission back in. Another thing I went and bought was a new clutch fork and pivot ball, and that's because my old clutch fork, when I pulled the motor off the first time, had a crack. So we just welded it, smoothed it out a little bit, and it was starting to crack again, so it held up. But yeah, basically the fault was that that fucking throwout bearing exploded. But so far that's all I have. I cleaned up where the clutch goes, put my stage 2 competition clutch in, tightened it down, and that's all I can do right now. So since I didn't record taking the transmission out, I'll record putting it in and putting that sleeve over, and from there it's all to go. Clutch is in. I just need to put the transmission up, throw the axles on, exhaust, drive shaft, and bleed the clutch. But you'll see that for part 2, so stay tuned.